Bets, peepers. Trying this from my tablet now to see how well it does. Recording with the tablet before on the screen, I've seen it dimming and brightening, but I don't think it records that way. And the other piece is the audio. At some point, I'm going to pull the mic out that I'm using and see how the microphone audio from the tablet sounds. If you listen to my videos, I cover 800 miles in every video, and it's a problem because I get distracted and lose some of the intent or focus. But each point is another story in itself. It makes them hard to speak to and hard to stay on topic if you're not focused well. So maybe working with chat can help me stay focused towards something. One of the things I talked about is nuclear boats. Now, right now, there's only one kind of nuclear boat we know of, and those are military. Those military boats only have a few places that they can dock in the world through global treaties and negotiation because of the risks and the hazards. While they're sitting in port, there's probably scuba divers scubaing around, practicing being scuba divers. These all are risk areas. They are vulnerable areas. If the nuclear-powered sub is carrying nuclear warheads, which is kind of what they were designed for, you now double the radiation risks. It's actually not double, it's probably a bit more than double, because that's how radiation works. It has a persistence in the environment. But this idea of nuclear ships, the Navy has never tried to build small nuclear. Naval reactors are significantly different than anything that we've seen in the civilian world because they're waterbound. They're underwater all the time. They don't have to worry too much about cooling risks, and they do, but not compared to a nuclear facility on the shore that can be shut down by jellyfish. I wonder if a nuclear sub can be shut down by a swarm of jellyfish. Anyway, nuclear-powered vessels. So these are about the only we know of. We have nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. I'm not sure down to what class of ships have got nuclear reactors in them. When all those reactors are done being used at the end of their life, which I believe is 20 years, maybe 30 years, they get removed from that ship and dragged up to Hanford Reservation. And one of the sites, it's a civilian storage site, but they store former naval nuclear reactors. The metal has been contaminated with nuclear materials, can't be reused, can't be recycled, so it just has to go sit somewhere and do what nuclear materials do for generations. You can find that site if you go to Google Earth, Google Maps, and go look for it. It's out there. It's near the Hanford Reservation. It sits a little bit above the alluvial floodplain that the Hanford waste tanks sit on. So for right now, all nuclear reactors from naval vessels, America's fleet, goes to one place in Hanford, Washington, or Hanford Reach, or Hanford Waste, whatever you'd like to call that area. That's how it's done. The other comparable reactors might be SMRs. SMRs were tried out. SMRs were a function of the Army Corps of Engineers. You can find back in their records, if you research back the Corps of Engineers, attempts to install nuclear reactors at the last site was a village in Alaska. This was the first official try of an SMR for commercial use to keep a village running instead of a military installation. The other reactors we know about, I think one is in Greenland, maybe Iceland, maybe both, buried in mounds of snow, and who knows what's up north. This is part of that compartmentalization previously discussed in another video. So these are big things. These are global things. These things are spread out, managed, run corporate interests, mostly, with some military oversight, whatever that means. Corporate, so nuclear ships. It's just that, see, you can go down these rabbit holes, and that's why I don't have a problem calling them rabbit holes, and I'm more than happy to go down in them. But nuclear ships. So we know about naval ships with nuclear power. We have no record of civilian ships of any sort, commercial or otherwise, with nuclear reactors. Although in your mind, if you were an inventive sort, a kid built a nuclear contaminated site in his backyard playing with nuclear materials. A child did that. I could advise you how to do that yourself. The materials are too easily available. So, nuclear ships. The most recent nuclear application for a ship wasn't a ship, it was a barge. Russia built a barge with 2 nuclear reactors on it. Now, these are basically commercial reactors. These aren't SMRs, put on barges. It was tested and tried for, I think, 2 years after it was built. And I think it's been turned over to commercial management and moved up into the North Sea. So what it's doing is warming the North Sea. That's good, right? So those 2 reactors are sitting up there, supplying energy to one of the largest undersea oil fields in the world. You can find the Googles on that too. You can find the YouTubes on that. And it shows you just some pieces of the maps and the drilling and the pipes that are run across the seabed, the Arctic, and the companies that do that. Rex Tillerson happened to be involved very heavily. Matter of fact, he spent most of his time in Russia for some reason. An Exxon oil executive appointed Secretary of State dealing very heavily with Russia while they're deploying 2 nuclear reactors into the Arctic Ocean. Anyone do warming equations? I talked before about warming rivers, making them too hot and the plants having to slow down or shut down, power down, derate due to environmental concerns. Anything from jellyfish in the feed intakes to outlet temperatures too high to undue cooling water draw. Although they might not release back into the rivers they draw cooling water for those towers from, all that evaporating water is river water. So to stop from taking too much river water, they have to slow those commercial nuclear reactors down. That's how it works. You can find through the NRC records the requests for those D rates and the approvals for those D rates, specifically because external environmental conditions. There are some notes about nuclear submarines and where they can and can't go. Hey, welcome. What is it? Small Fish, I believe, is the name. You're pretty consistent with that question. I have no idea where my ex-wives are. We separated long ago. Thanks for asking. So, nuclear ships. Where else are they? Only navies have them. Only naval facilities capable of handling nuclear materials allow those ships to dock. Or there's foreign UN level treaties and agreements allowing those ships to dock. So where is Bezos going to park his nuclear yacht? Because this is how you open that can of worms. So if they go after naval reactor designs, which, by the way, the patents should have expired on, so all this stuff should be cheap now, right? Free energy. They promise that. The fuel requirements for these naval nuclear vessels, as I understand them, either don't require refueling or have refueling intervals out 7 to 10 years. I haven't tried to track out the fuel content for those reactors. I believe that's still pretty well a secret, but it could be available document somewhere. And it really doesn't matter. It's not the same as commercial nuclear reactor fuel, period. Or it's got significantly different rules that I don't know about because they're secret. So this idea of these ships having these reactors, I mean, it sounds all fine and dandy. Where's the fuel come from? What's the cost of that fuel? These are ultra high purity materials. If you have any ideas how they are made, what it takes to separate, molecular level separations, creating high purity materials. You get hints and nuances in this about batteries being bad because materials aren't the right materials. So the batteries aren't as good as they're supposed to be. So there's seconds. They're okay batteries, but they're not the best batteries. These ultra high purity materials, these were part of electronics industry for silicone wafer manufacturing, and the lead and the tin and the gold and anything else of the materials that they use. The arsenic or the, what's the other doping material? Getting old here. Those things are part of the processes. They use very volatile chemicals to dissolve materials throughout the process. So you go to nuclear materials processing. Almost all processing to get these purities require centrifuge processing, gas centrifuges, meaning that even what you think of as a solid in there is almost kept as a gas. Tiny molecular separations of materials you cannot see. We cannot see. We can envision. We have devices that allow us to see them, but you can't see them. Those separations are hugely expensive. The materials, the chemicals involved. That's one of the reasons that computer chip industry is having struggles in many countries. They have a pollution tail and a pollution stream that is very well managed in the U.S. I believe. How you verify that is another question, but so this boat idea is a challenge for, I guess, our politicians to solve. Who pays them? Peace out, folks. Have a great day.